I can stop this ransomware in 90 seconds. The voice didn't belong to an executive or a high-priced consultant, or even one of the security engineers hunched over glowing screens. It belonged to a young woman in a janitor's uniform, standing unnoticed near the door, her cart squeaking to a stop on the polished floor. The words sliced through the panic that had overtaken the room. Red warning screens glared from every wall of the 28th floor conference center at Northvale Biotech, a glass tower that dominated the city skyline. Patient files, research data worth billions, years of carefully guarded work. All of it was vanishing into encrypted oblivion. At the head of the table stood Laura Benton, CEO. Her reputation was one of iron discipline, a leader who had doubled profits in 3 years, a strategist admired by Wall Street and feared by competitors. Yet in this moment her authority cracked like thin ice. The countdown timer on the largest screen showed 78 minutes until total collapse. Her hand trembled as she pressed it flat against the table. "How did they get through everything we built?" she demanded. The heads of her elite security team, graduates of Stanford, MIT, Cambridge, avoided her gaze. Credentials lined their office walls, but here, under the harsh glare of failing systems, they looked powerless. And then came that voice again, steady and certain. "I know exactly how they got in, and I know how to stop them." Every head turned. Standing beside her cart, mop bucket rattling quietly, was Maya Reed. 24 years old, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense braid, uniform faded from years of detergent washes, yet her eyes were sharp, focused, unflinching. The room froze. A director scoffed. "You clean offices. This is not your—" But Maya didn't back down. She repeated herself, calm as stone. "They used a vulnerability I've been tracking for weeks. You're fighting shadows. I can cut them off before they finish what they started." The room didn't know what to do with her words. They carried weight, though no one wanted to admit it. Hours earlier, long before the alarms, Maya's day had begun in a cramped apartment on the south side of the city. At 4:30 a.m., she reached for the battered second-hand laptop she'd rebuilt from scrap. The screen hummed to life under her fingers, patched together with pieces scavenged from recycling bins, charity shops, and old donations. While most people at her level might have scrolled news headlines or checked social media, Maya dove into encrypted forums, analyzing the latest chatter from the world of cyber threats. Her father, David Reed, slept lightly in the living room on a fold-out couch. He had worked night shifts for most of his life, cleaning offices, schools, government buildings. His snores drifted softly in the background as Maya studied lines of malicious code, tracing how ransomware burrowed through healthcare networks. By 5:15, she'd already helped an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, retrieve her grandson's lost essay from a corrupted file. She charged nothing. Payment came in tamales that arrived wrapped in foil and love. Her father shuffled into the kitchen, wearing the same uniform Maya would soon put on. His hair had gone gray, his shoulders rounded by years of quiet labor, but his pride in his daughter was unshakable. "Early bird catches the worm," he said, voice rough with sleep but filled with affection. Maya grinned. "Early bird catches the vulnerabilities." She showed him a post she had written that morning dissecting a new ransomware strain targeting medical systems. She explained patterns, entry points, flaws in their encryption methods. He didn't understand every detail, but he understood enough to know she was brilliant. "You should be at one of those big tech firms, not cleaning their offices," he said, pouring coffee into a chipped mug that read "World's Best Dad." "We've talked about this," Maya replied, closing her laptop. "Without a degree, they don't look twice. But I'll earn that certification next month. I'm almost there." Instead of arguing, he pulled an envelope from his pocket and placed it in her hand. "I've been saving. For your exam. For your future. My retirement can wait." Maya's throat tightened. She tucked the money into her backpack beside her notebooks, worn manuals, and a cracked smartwatch she'd reprogrammed herself. Her father's faith burned brighter than any credential. Together, they boarded the early bus. 40 minutes later, the towering glass headquarters of Northvale Biotech loomed above them, catching the morning sun. Maya and her father entered through the service doors, unremarked, unseen as they had every day. High above them, Laura Benton was already in her office sipping imported coffee while reviewing strategy calls with partners in Tokyo. She didn't notice the low-priority warning flashing on her screen. She dismissed it with a click. Maya did notice. She saw it again and again that week, flashing at the corners of executives' monitors as she emptied recycling bins. She filled a notebook with sketches of vulnerable servers, notes about outdated firmware, diagrams of weak IoT connections. She had even sent anonymous tips to the security team. They had dismissed them as noise, but now the noise had become a storm. And as the countdown clock ticked down toward catastrophe, Maya Reed stood ready. For months she had been invisible. But when systems failed and panic ruled the room, she became the only person who had truly seen what was coming. Would they finally see her? The first signs were subtle. A slow loading screen, a file that refused to open. Employees across the lower floors muttered about the network being sluggish, brushing it off as maintenance. An automated email went out from IT about optimization updates, but almost no one read past the subject line. Maya noticed immediately. While cleaning the executive bathroom, her smartwatch app, disguised as a weather widget, pulsed with strange readings. Network traffic was shifting in irregular patterns, ones she had memorized from studying past attacks. She frowned. This was not random slowdown. It was infiltration. By mid-morning, the whispers had grown louder. Marketing staff complained about presentation slides that wouldn't load. Research teams said their servers felt like they were dragging through molasses. In the call center, agents tapped their keyboards impatiently, forced to tell clients to wait. Inside the glass-walled security operations center, tension mounted. Analysts shifted uneasily at their desks, scanning scrolling alerts that only deepened their unease. The lead, a man named Adam Clark, paced behind them with a phone pressed to his ear. His team of degree-stamped experts exchanged worried looks, trying to decipher what exactly was tearing through the system. Maya, outside their door, bent to empty a trash bin and quietly watched. On the bottom shelf of her cart, beneath paper towels and spray bottles, her notebook lay open to a hand-drawn diagram she had made 3 weeks earlier. The pattern on those screens inside mirrored her own sketch almost perfectly. She had predicted this, and no one had listened. Up on the 35th floor, Laura Benton prepared for tomorrow's investor meeting, where she would unveil a breakthrough drug called NovoCure. It was her company's crown jewel, years of research, billions in potential profit. She reassured her team that security was world-class, dismissing rumors of pharmaceutical firms being targeted. The words had barely left her mouth when her phone chimed with another low-priority login attempt. Without hesitation, she swiped it away. The building's hierarchy remained blind, but Maya saw every crack forming. At 11:42, it struck. The first workstation went black, a customer service agent's screen blinking into nothing before relighting with a pulsing crimson skull. The words beneath it froze her blood. "Your data is being encrypted. Payment instructions will follow." Panic erupted. Within minutes, dozens of identical reports poured into the help desk. Floors of employees gasped as screens turned red. Marketing files, customer accounts, research drives, all locked. By noon, the executive floor descended into controlled chaos. Laura Benton called an emergency session. The security team surrounded glowing laptops, sweat beading as they fought to contain the spreading infection. "How bad is it?" Laura demanded, her voice sharp but betraying an edge of fear. Adam rubbed his forehead. "It's spreading through every department. Marketing is offline. Customer service is gone. Research is beginning to show symptoms. The NovoCure data is still safe for now, but they're moving faster than we can counter." The wall-sized screen shifted suddenly, and a timer appeared. Hours, minutes, seconds ticking mercilessly downward. The message glared in bold red letters. "All patient data and research files are being encrypted. Transfer 7 million in Bitcoin within 78 hours or lose everything permanently. Attempts to restore from backups will fail. We control those too." The executives froze. Laura's face drained of color. Her security team looked helpless. Outside the conference room, Maya's phone buzzed with the alert she'd been waiting for. Her monitoring app confirmed it. The attackers had entered through the exact backdoor she had reported. The vulnerability in conference room devices that no one had patched. She looked through the glass at the frenzied executives. For months she had been invisible. Now their survival depended on knowledge she alone had carried. Her father, working on the 12th floor, was sweeping up spilled coffee from frantic employees when his phone vibrated. A text from Maya. "It's happening. The attack I warned them about." He slipped away into a corner and called her. Are you safe? I'm fine, she answered. But they're not. They have no idea what they're facing. This isn't your fight, Maya. But it might be my solution, she said, steady as ever. David closed his eyes. He knew that tone. It was the same determination she had shown as a teenager when she taught herself coding, when she rebuilt a virus-stricken computer for a neighbor, when she decided she would chase cybersecurity with or without a degree. You've been warning them and they ignored you, he said carefully. Why should you step in now? Because if I don't, thousands of patients could lose their records, treatments could be disrupted, jobs destroyed. I can't just watch it happen. Silence hung for a beat. Then his voice softened. You're your mother's daughter. She never walked past someone in trouble either. Be careful. I will, Maya promised. On the executive floor, the countdown glowed like a guillotine. The board demanded answers, investors were calling. Rumors spread like wildfire. Laura Benton was cracking under pressure, snapping at her team, threatening firings, demanding results. The security team argued, scrambling, but none of them could hold back the tide. At 2 p.m., with systems failing and the backup servers revealed to be compromised, despair thickened the air. Adam confessed that the vulnerability matched the same anonymous warnings they had dismissed for months. And just outside the glass wall, pushing her cart quietly down the hall, Maya Reed heard every word. The war room had turned into a furnace of fear. The security analysts hammered at keyboards, but every keystroke felt like a delay against a storm that refused to stop. On the massive screen, the countdown ticked relentlessly, each second a nail tightening around the company's throat. Laura Benton's heels cracked against the polished floor as she paced. I want answers, not excuses. How did this happen? How could our world-class security team let this through? No one dared to meet her eyes. Adam swallowed hard. The entry point appears to be the conference room systems. The IoT devices weren't updated. Laura's head snapped toward him. Weren't those updates scheduled months ago? They were scheduled for next week, Adam admitted. Next week? Her voice cut the air. We are hours away from losing everything, and you're telling me the team postponed the one update that could have stopped this. Derek, her chief information officer, tried to soften the blow. It was prioritized according to your directive. You insisted we focus on encrypting patient data first. The silence that followed was heavy enough to choke on. Laura's eyes blazed. Are you blaming me? No one spoke. On the screens, another wave of red alerts bloomed. More servers fell, spreading like wildfire. The board was convening in half an hour. Investors were demanding to know why their billion-dollar future hung by a thread. Laura straightened, forcing authority back into her voice. I've already called in external experts. CyberShield will be here within 3 hours. 3 hours? Sophia, one of the senior analysts, looked up in horror. We'll be locked out of critical systems long before then. Then work faster, Laura snapped, gathering her tablet. Fix this or start updating your resumes. The moment she left, Sophia buried her face in her hands. We're finished. That IoT vulnerability. It's exactly what those anonymous tips warned about. They were too vague, Adam muttered, defensive. And they didn't follow proper channels. Neither of them noticed Maya pushing her cart past the open doorway, her expression unreadable. She had been right all along. And now, time was bleeding out. Downstairs, David Reed mopped a hallway littered with half-empty coffee cups and papers dropped by panicked staff. He worked steadily, ignoring whispers of layoffs, of total collapse. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Maya. They're floundering. I can't just stand here. He called her back immediately. Maya, listen to me. If you walk into that room and fail, they'll tear you apart. They won't forgive. And if I don't walk in, she said quietly, thousands of patient records are gone forever, treatments halted, and this company collapses. They can hate me later. Right now I can stop it. Her father closed his eyes. He remembered her at 14, proudly showing him the simple game she had coded in Python after weeks of self-study. He remembered her at 16, sitting cross-legged on the floor with 3 broken laptops she had salvaged, bringing each one back to life with patience and ingenuity. He remembered every time she had chosen knowledge over recognition. You've been invisible to them for too long, he said softly. Maybe it's time they finally saw you. On the executive floor, Laura Benton faced her own reckoning in the boardroom. Members appeared on a massive screen, faces grim. You told us our security was unbreakable. Chairwoman Evelyn Blackwell said, voice sharp as a blade. And now you're telling us it's crumbling? Laura kept her tone steady, though her hands clenched beneath the table. We're facing a sophisticated, targeted attack. Our team is working and external experts are en route. What about Novocure? Another board member asked. It's secure for now, but I cannot guarantee that will hold. The admission sent ripples of alarm through the room. Evelyn's face hardened. Unacceptable. Years of research, billions of potential revenue at risk. And your answer is wait for help? Before Laura could respond, her phone lit up again. CNN requesting comment on the rumored ransomware attack. The press already smelled blood. Back in the war room, Adam slammed his laptop closed. We're locked out of another cluster. At this rate, they'll own everything in hours. A junior analyst whispered, what if the external experts don't make it in time? They won't, Sophia said grimly. Flights delayed in Chicago. Earliest they arrive is 7 tonight. The countdown on the wall glared mercilessly. 74 hours, 31 minutes, 12 seconds, and just outside that room, Maya stood frozen, cart against the wall. Her pulse hammered. For months she had walked these halls unseen. Now she was watching the people in charge unravel, trapped by their own arrogance. She drew a breath, squared her shoulders, and reached for the door handle. It was time. The door opened quietly, almost lost beneath the frantic clicking of keyboards and the rising murmur of voices. For a moment nobody noticed the figure slipping in, wheeling a cart to the far corner of the room. Maya stood there silently, her presence blending into the background just as it always had. But this time she didn't intend to stay invisible. She listened first, eyes flicking across the room. The analysts were panicking, trying and failing to adapt. Adam ran both hands through his hair, muttering curses under his breath. Sophia snapped at a junior engineer who had accidentally shut down a wrong process. Every move they made only seemed to tighten the noose. The malware is adapting, Adam growled. It's like it knows what we're going to do before we even try. It does, Maya said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The room froze. Heads turned, frowns spreading across faces. The security team blinked at her as if a shadow had suddenly spoken. Excuse me? Sophia asked, incredulous. This is a restricted area. You're facing a deep lock ransomware variant. Maya continued steadily, ignoring the protests. Version 4.2, if I'm not mistaken. It uses machine learning to anticipate standard countermeasures. That's why every move you make, it's already one step ahead. The silence was thick. Adam recovered first, bristling with anger. How would you possibly know that? Maya's gaze didn't waver. Because I've been tracking this strain for months. And I'm the one who sent you those anonymous warnings about your conference room vulnerabilities. Sophia's eyes widened. Realization dawning. That was you. Before Maya could answer, the door swung open again. Laura Benton swept in, Derek at her side, her frustration radiating like heat. She stopped mid-stride when she saw Maya standing at the console. Why is maintenance in here? Laura's voice dripped with disbelief. This is a level 1 security crisis, not a janitorial emergency. Remove your supplies and get out. Maya didn't move. She met Laura's stare without flinching. If you want to save your company, you'll give me access to your systems. A burst of laughter erupted from Laura, sharp and dismissive. You expect me to hand over control to a cleaner? We have highly trained professionals. The same professionals who ignored my warnings. The same ones who are blocking the wrong ports right now while the malware tunnels out your research through DNS traffic. Maya said calmly. Adam's hands froze on his keyboard. His eyes darted back to the data streams, and horror spread across his face. She was right. Laura narrowed her eyes. And you are? Maya Reed, maintenance staff. 2 years here, and I know your network better than anyone in this room. She pulled a battered notebook from her pocket and flipped it open. Page after page of hand-drawn diagrams, vulnerability notes, timestamps of suspicious activity, 17 separate issues documented in meticulous detail. You didn't want to listen before. But if you keep ignoring me, you're going to lose everything. Laura crossed her arms. Derek, escort her out. But before Derek could move, Sophia spoke up. Wait, she knew about the DNS tunnel. None of us even saw it until 10 minutes ago. She might actually understand what we're up against. Derek hesitated, looking between Laura and Maya. Maybe we should hear her out. Laura's lips pressed into a thin line. Her pride fought with the crushing reality of the ticking clock on the wall. After a long, tense pause, she relented with a cold nod. 2 minutes. Then you go back to your mop. Maya didn't waste time. She stepped to the console, fingers moving with confidence. The security team parted reluctantly, watching her scan the data. "You're focusing on the wrong thing," she explained. "The encryption is just the distraction. The real attack is exfiltration. They're stealing NovoCure research while you panic over locked files. Check your outbound traffic on non-standard ports, UDP 53. Cross-reference with domains registered in the last 30 days, especially Eastern European blocks." Sophia typed rapidly, then froze. She's right. Massive data is flowing out under our thresholds. All eyes swung back to Maya. Laura stepped closer, her disbelief cracking into unease. "How could you possibly know this?" "Because I've studied every attack like this for the past 3 years, Maya said simply. "I'm 2 weeks away from my certification. And last month I stopped the same vector from taking down a small business network. No degrees, no titles. Just skill and persistence." Derek cleared his throat. "At this point, what do we have to lose?" Laura stared at Maya for a long, searching moment. A young woman in a faded uniform, standing calmly where her $1 million security team had failed. Pride battled with desperation inside her, but the clock on the wall was merciless. "Fine," she said at last. "Show me what you can do." Maya nodded. "Then I'll need administrative access to your monitoring systems." "That's against protocol," Adam snapped. "Your protocols are why you're here," Maya replied without raising her voice. "The attackers knew exactly how rigid you were." "That's why they won," Laura cut in sharply. "Give her access. Temporary and logged." And with that, the janitor's daughter took the helm. The room shifted. Where chaos had reigned a moment before, all eyes now followed Maya as she slid into the main chair at the console. Her fingers moved with steady precision, tapping keys with the ease of someone who had rehearsed these motions 1,000 times in the solitude of her bedroom. "The initial breach came through your conference room displays," she explained, pulling up a schematic of the network. "They exploited an unpatched firmware bug, then spread laterally through your IoT management system into your domain controllers." Sophia leaned forward, stunned. But those systems weren't supposed to have that level of trust. "Not on paper," Maya replied, highlighting a log entry. "But someone misconfigured permissions in March and never corrected it. That's how they escalated." Adam's face paled. He remembered that update. The mistake was his. Maya kept speaking, her tone level, her focus absolute. "This malware strain always has a kill switch. But to find it, we need to trace how the first compromise occurred. Every step matters. Right now, they think they're in control. We're going to trick them into a false environment and take the keys out from under them." The countdown glared overhead. 73 hours, 12 minutes and seconds draining away like sand through glass. Derek leaned in. "What's your plan?" "We isolate them," Maya said firmly. "Create a decoy environment that mimics your network. They'll pour their resources into attacking the fake system. Meanwhile, we siphon the decryption keys they've already generated and stop the exfiltration at its source." "That's risky," Adam objected. If it fails, you're no worse off than you are right now," Maya cut him off. "If it works, you save everything." Laura folded her arms, eyes locked on her. "How long will it take?" 7 minutes of downtime. If we time it perfectly, Laura calculated quickly. 7 minutes of silence versus the death of her company. Do it. The team hesitated only for a breath, then moved under Maya's instructions. She divided them into roles, giving each analyst clear, simple orders. The skepticism had melted from their faces, replaced by the sharp intensity of soldiers following a commander they finally trusted. Phase 1. Containment, Maya said, voice steady. Redirect traffic. Shut down the secondary pathways. Adam, monitor outbound traffic. Sophia, be ready with the script I've prepared. On my mark, we'll execute together. Sophia glanced at her. What exactly will it do? It turns their weapons back on them, Maya explained. We make them believe they're still burrowing deeper while we wall them into a cage. Laura hovered close, unable to pull away from the unfolding battle. And then we take back what's ours. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, setting the trap. The malware shifted in response, probing, testing, sensing that something had changed. Warnings flashed. The lights on the monitoring screens flickered like storm clouds rolling across the sky. They know something's wrong, Maya murmured. Her hands moved faster, blocking evasion attempts before they could fully form. Every keystroke was a counterpunch, every command a defensive wall raised just in time. Sophia whispered, awe in her voice. How are you doing this? Patterns, Maya answered without looking up. Every group has habits. Once you learn their rhythm, you know their next move. The room had gone silent except for the furious tapping of keys. The battle was invisible, yet it was as real as any clash of swords. Seconds bled away into minutes, and still Maya held the line. At last she leaned back, exhaling sharply. I've got it. Adam's eyes widened as he checked his monitor. The exfiltration stopped. Sophia's voice trembled. The encryption process paused. Maya allowed herself a small nod. We've seized control of their malware. We can start decrypting your systems while keeping the attackers convinced they're still winning. Relief rippled through the room like a wave. Adam's disbelief cracked into a stunned laugh. Sophia clapped a hand over her mouth, eyes bright with amazement. Derek closed his eyes, tension leaving his shoulders for the first time in hours. Laura Benton, however, did not celebrate. She studied Maya in silence, watching this young woman in a faded uniform command her most expensive department with authority and clarity. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but sharp. How long until everything is restored? 4 to 6 hours for the critical systems, Maya replied. By morning, the rest. NovoCure is safe. They never breached the core. The executive sagged in relief, but Maya wasn't finished. Her eyes narrowed at new activity on the screen. They've realized their attack is failing. They're shifting tactics. If we're not fast, they'll go scorched earth. Destroy what they can't steal. Laura moved closer, eyes locked on the pulsing alerts. What do you need? Maya's answer was immediate. Full system authority. Every credential. Every clearance, Derek stiffened. That would give her unrestricted access to every piece of proprietary data. You can't win without me, Maya said evenly. Decide now. Every second you hesitate, your future burns. The countdown loomed overhead, merciless. Laura Benton made the call without flinching. Do it, give her everything she needs. Credentials unlocked. Elevated access granted. The room seemed to hold its breath as Maya's screen flooded with raw pathways no one outside the senior team had ever seen. She didn't hesitate. With swift command, she pulled the network into a sprawling map that covered every monitor. A battlefield laid bare. They've launched a secondary payload, she said, scanning the shifting signals. It's targeting your backup validation protocols. They're trying to corrupt your last defenses while you're distracted. Gasps rose from the analysts. Adam shook his head in disbelief. If they kill the backups, even decryption won't matter. Everything's gone. Not if we move faster, Maya replied. Her fingers blurred, patching holes, rerouting traffic, cutting off branches before they could ignite. For every strike the attackers launched, she met them with a counter, her moves precise and ruthless. On the main screen, warning alerts flared like fireworks. Red waves surged toward the core servers where NovoCure data sat guarded. That research, years of clinical trials, lives depending on it, was their crown jewel. And the attackers were throwing everything at it. They're going for the heart, Sophia whispered. Maya didn't look up. Then we shield the heart. Sophia, execute this script on my mark. It will sever every external connection for 30 seconds and isolate the research servers inside a sealed bubble. Nothing in, nothing out. Laura stepped closer. You're cutting us off from the world? For half a minute, Maya said firmly. It will look like they've won, but in that silence I'll lock the servers in a cage they can't touch. Sophia's hand hovered over the keyboard. Ready? Now. The room plunged into tense quiet as the command executed. The monitoring screens flashed red, then yellow, then slowly faded into green. The research servers were sealed, untouchable. The company's lifeblood had been pulled out of reach just in time. They're furious, Maya said calmly as new error logs poured in from the attacker's side. They're flailing now. I'm deploying the final measure. Laura frowned. What measure? Maya's tone didn't waver. I'll trace them. Tag their infrastructure with a passive marker. Law enforcement will find them. They'll never know it came from inside this room. Her code spread invisibly through the attacker's channels, planting seeds that would betray them later. On the screens, the malware's grip cracked, its branches shriveling, its tunnels collapsing. The countdown timer stuttered, then froze at 72 hours, 41 minutes, 19 seconds, and then it vanished. For a moment, the room was silent. Then a single pair of hands clapped from the back. Another joined in. Within seconds, the war room echoed with applause, laughter, disbelieving cheers. Relief and pride broke through the tension like sunlight after a storm. Maya sat back, breathing out slowly. It's done. Their access is gone. Systems will be fully restored in hours. NovoCure is safe. Adam stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. You just saved everything. Sophia smiled through tears. And we would have ignored you forever if you hadn't walked in. Laura Benton didn't clap. She stepped forward until she stood face to face with Maya, her gaze steady, her voice lower than it had been all day. You've been warning us for months. We dismissed you because of what you wear, not what you know. Maya held her eyes. Knowledge is a responsibility, whether it's recognized or not. Laura let out a slow breath, nodding once. Behind her, Evelyn Blackwell, the board chair, appeared at the door. She had come in time to see the last moments. Her eyes moved from the young woman in a faded uniform to the exhausted but relieved security team. You're telling me this member of your cleaning staff just stopped an attack that your $1 million department couldn't contain? She asked flatly. Sophia answered without hesitation. Yes, she found the vulnerabilities we missed, traced the attack, and turned the tide in under 2 hours. Evelyn looked at Laura. And you authorized this? I authorized the only person in the room who could save us, Laura replied. The silence that followed was heavy, then undeniable. Maya Reed was no longer invisible. In the days that followed, the recovery was swift. Systems restored, data intact, investors calmed. But inside the company, something deeper had shifted. Credentials no longer carried the same weight as competence. Doors once locked were being opened, and 3 weeks later, Maya Reed stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, not with a cart but with a portfolio. The nameplate on the door waiting for her read, Maya Reed, Chief Information Security Officer. Her office overlooked the city, the same view Laura had once guarded as a symbol of power. Now it was Maya's vantage point. She had work ahead, restructuring the entire security division, building training programs, designing new pipelines for hidden talent. But none of that daunted her. She had already fought a war in this building. That afternoon, her father stopped by, still wearing his uniform, though the staff greeted him now with smiles and respect. His eyes softened when he saw her new office. You always said they'd see you for your mind, not your mop, he said quietly. Maya smiled, holding up the key card that gave her access to every floor. They see now. And as she looked out over the city, her reflection in the glass no longer that of a janitor fading into the background, but of a leader forged in fire, one truth settled over her like steady light. The overlooked had become the savior, and she would never be invisible again.